My fiancé texted, "I shredded your passport because you're too obsessed with work, travel. Now you're staying home." I had a flight to my brother's destination wedding in 6 hours. I responded, "Noted." Then I went to the emergency passport office, got a new one, and flew out. When I returned 2 weeks later with annulment papers from an attorney I'd met at the wedding, I3 Mail was closing a deal when the text came through. Her name was Qley, my wife of 21 days. We'd had a courthouse wedding, something she'd pushed for in a rush of emotion and logic I never fully understood. I should have seen that as a warning, her need for control disguised as love. But I'd convinced myself she was just passionate. That word aged badly. I remember staring at that photo for maybe 10 seconds. Just 10. And in those 10 seconds, everything I thought I knew about her came crashing down. There wasn't rage, not even heartbreak, just a sudden hollow clarity. She wasn't having a meltdown. This was who she was. Someone who would destroy something of mine to trap me where she wanted me. I typed one word back, "Noted." Then I picked up my phone and called my assistant. "Jenna, find me the nearest passport agency that can do a same-day replacement. I'll pay whatever it costs." 3 minutes later, she called back there was one downtown, but they required proof of urgent international travel. I had my boarding pass and itinerary printed already. My brother's destination wedding was in 6 hours. I wasn't going to miss it. I didn't even stop to grab my coat. My phone lit up with call after call from Qley, vibrating so violently it nearly slid off my desk. I ignored it all. By 2:30 p.m., I was standing in line at the passport agency, explaining to a sympathetic clerk why I needed a new one. When she saw the photo of the shredded passport, she raised an eyebrow and muttered, "She really did that. Sir, that's, wow. Let's get you to that wedding." $400, and 3 hours later, I had a temporary passport in my hand. My flight left at 11:30 p.m. I headed back to the office, packed my laptop, and ignored the 31 missed calls and 52 unread texts piling up. I forwarded every message to a folder titled Evidence. At 8:07 p.m., I picked up the new passport and went straight to the airport. Sitting at the gate, whiskey in hand, I finally opened her messages. They began sweetly, "Baby, please, let's talk like adults," then turned sour. "You're being childish. Marriage means compromise," and finally unhinged. "If you get on that plane, I'm changing the locks and throwing your stuff out." Her final text, "Go ahead. When you come back, you'll see what happens when you choose your family over your wife." I typed back, "See you in 2 weeks. Maybe," then hit send and blocked her number. As the plane lifted off, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not excitement, not anger, just peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop trying to convince yourself that madness is love. The wedding was everything mine wasn't. Warm, open, joyful. My brother marrying a woman who looked at him like he was her favorite place on earth. I watched them exchange vows under the sunset, waves crashing behind them, and realized what marriage should look like. Not possession, not control, partnership. The next day, I told my parents what had happened. My mum went completely silent, that kind of dangerous silence that meant she was truly furious. My dad just said, "Son, you're getting an annulment today." I nodded. I already know. Later that night, my brother found me sitting at the beach bar, staring into my drink. "Dude, I'm gonna be real, I never liked her," he said. "Why didn't you say something? Would you have listened?" "Probably not. She was intense, like obsessed with whether you loved us more than her. She asked me that multiple times. That hit like a punch to the chest. The pieces finally fit. Her constant tests, her emotional outbursts whenever I called my parents, her insistence that we merge everything right after the wedding, it all made sense now. That night, I met a woman named Ava at the reception. She was a guest come, sharp, and, as fate would have it, a family law attorney. We started talking, and when I told her what had happened, she didn't flinch, just listened. Then, quietly, she said, "You have grounds for annulment fraud, coercion, destruction of property to control behavior. It's textbook. Any judge would grant it." "How fast?" I asked. "If you're serious." "I can file as soon as you get back. I'm serious." "Good," she smiled. "Bring everything. Every text, every threat, that photo. You'll walk away clean." And for the first time since that shredded passport, I believed I could. When my flight touched back down 2 weeks later, I felt different, lighter somehow. I'd spent the trip surrounded by family, laughter, and people who knew the version of me that existed before Qley. Somewhere between the ocean breeze and my brother's vows, I'd remembered what peace felt like. Her car was parked outside our apartment when the Uber pulled up. The sight of it made my stomach knot, but not from fear, from exhaustion. I unlocked the door. The key still worked, so much for her threat to change the locks. Inside, everything was staged. Candles burning, wine poured, my favorite meal steaming on the table. Claire sat on the couch in a tight red dress, every strand of hair perfectly in place. The same dazzling smile she'd used to talk her way into my life. "Welcome home." "Baby," she purred, standing to hug me. I stepped back. "Don't." She froze, confusion flickering in her eyes. "What?" "I met with a lawyer at the wedding. I'm filing for an annulment tomorrow." For a second, she didn't process the words. Then her face crumpled, the sweetness evaporating into pure disbelief. "An annulment? Are you serious? Over a passport?" I set my suitcase down. "Over the fact that you destroyed a federal document to control me." "That's not a marriage, Claire. That's coercion." She scoffed, voice rising. "It was a mistake." I was upset. "No," I said quietly. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. You shredded my passport and bragged about it." The switch flipped instantly. Her voice sharpened. "You can't just walk out. We're married, not for much longer." Her expression twisted from pleading to fury in seconds. "You think you're some hero for leaving me? After I quit my job for you." I blinked. "You did what?" "I thought we'd start a family," she said, tears welling now, weaponized and well-rehearsed. "You owe me for that. I never asked you to quit. Never discussed kids. You made that choice." Her voice broke into a scream. "You owe me everything." I zipped my suitcase. "I owe you nothing but distance." When I tried to leave, she blocked the door. "No, you're not walking out. Move," I said, keeping my tone even. She didn't move. I repeated, pulling out my phone. "Or I call the cops." That did it. She moved, but just barely. I walked past her, heart hammering but hands steady. She followed me into the hallway, crying, shouting half sentences that echoed off the walls. "You'll regret this," she yelled as I got into the Uber. "Everyone will know what you did to me." The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. He asked soon, I said. He nodded. "Good luck, man, at the hotel." I called Ava. She answered on the first ring. "She tried to stop me from leaving," I said. Document it, she replied. Every text, every encounter, every threat. This will help. That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply. No midnight arguments, no vibrating phone lighting up with accusations. Just silence. By Monday morning, the annulment papers were filed. Ava worked fast. This is one of the clearest cases I've seen, she said. You'll be free soon. On Wednesday, Claire was served. By Thursday. The hotel front desk called at 6:47 a.m. Sir, there's a woman downstairs claiming to be your wife. She's demanding to see you. I sighed, pulled on a bathrobe, and took the elevator down. She was there, makeup smeared, voice raised, arguing with security. When she saw me, she lunged forward. You can't just abandon me. Claire, I said quietly, you shredded my passport. You forged my signature. You showed up uninvited. This isn't abandonment. It's escape. She tried to reach for me again. Security stepped in, holding her back as she screamed that I'd ruined her life. I walked away before they escorted her out. My hands were shaking, but my conscience wasn't. A few hours later, the voicemail started. First her mother, furious. Then her sister. Then her best friend, who accused me of pushing Claire and promised to go to the police. That one made my blood run cold. I called Ava immediately. She's threatening to claim abuse. I said, do not engage, Ava warned. You have hotel footage and a witness from security. Let her make her threats. She'd dig her own hole. 2 days later, I went to collect the rest of my things from the apartment. I brought my brother as a witness. We were halfway done packing when Claire pulled up. She stormed inside. What the hell are you doing? Getting my things, I said calmly. These are ours. She began yanking items from boxes, her face blotched with anger. My brother stepped between us. Lady, back off. She glared at him. This is between me and my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, I corrected. Her eyes filled with venom. You embarrassed me to everyone. I sighed. You embarrassed yourself, Claire. I just documented it. Neighbors were filming on their phones as she screamed at me from the sidewalk. I loaded the last box into the car, shut the trunk, and drove away without looking back. That night, I stayed at my parents' house. My mum had already made up my old room. When I walked in, she hugged me tight and whispered, "You're doing the right thing, even if it doesn't feel like it." And she was right, it didn't feel good. It felt like detonating a bomb in the middle of my life. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about a passport anymore. It was about control and freedom. That weekend, Ava called again. She's contesting the annulment, she said. Her lawyer claims you lured her into marriage with promises of financial support, then abandoned her after she sacrificed everything. I laughed bitterly. Of course she is. Don't worry, Ava said. We'll fight it. You have all the evidence. Just hold the line. And I did. For 3 more months of chaos, false accusations, late-night calls, and police reports, until, finally, the court date came, and I was ready. The morning of the hearing, I woke before dawn. My suit hung on the door, pressed and ready. The air felt strangely heavy, not nervous heavy, but final heavy. Like the quiet before a storm that you already know you'll survive. When I got to the courthouse, Claire was already there. She wore white, an actual wedding dress, of all things, as if the symbolism might rewrite reality. Her lawyer hovered beside her, whispering frantically, while she stared at me with a mixture of hatred and desperation. Ava arrived moments later, calm and composed, clutching her files. "You ready?" she asked, "as I'll ever be." Inside the courtroom was cold, sterile, fluorescent lights, polished wood, the kind of silence that makes every breath sound too loud. When the judge entered, everyone rose. I kept my eyes forward. Her attorney went first. He painted a melodramatic picture. How Claire had been emotionally manipulated, how she'd sacrificed her career for love, and how I'd abandoned her in her most vulnerable moment. I almost laughed. The only thing I'd abandoned was a sinking ship. Then Ava stood. No theatrics, just precision. "Your Honor," she began, "we're presenting a clear case of coercion, fraud, and destruction of federal property. My client's passport was deliberately destroyed to control his behavior, a documented act, with photographic evidence and over 50 threatening text messages corroborating intent. One by one, she submitted the timeline, the texts, the shredded passport photo, the forged lease, the hotel security footage, the police report from her drunk visit to my parents' house at 1:30 a.m. Every piece of it, meticulously organized. The judge leaned back, scanning the documents with tired eyes. Then he looked at Claire. "Double quotes, Mrs. Rains," he said slowly, "did you destroy your husband's passport?" She hesitated, then nodded slightly. "I was scared of losing him. So you admit to committing a federal crime in order to control his travel?" She blinked, caught between denial and defiance. I didn't mean answer the question, ma'am, yes." The room fell silent. The judge set the folder down. "And did you threaten to change the locks, forge his signature on a lease, appear at his hotel, and contact his employer with accusations?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. He sighed. "Mrs. Rains, what you call fear, the law calls coercion. What you call love, the law calls control. This marriage is hereby declared null and void." Annulment granted. The gavel hit the bench. 3 sharp knocks. Just like that, it was over. Her lawyer tried to argue for compensation, but the judge cut him off. 3 weeks of marriage. No joint assets. No dependents. Your client has no legal standing. Claire's face broke. Not in anger this time, but in disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend that the power she'd once had over me had vanished with a single sentence. She tried to stand, to say something, but the bailiff stepped forward. "Ma'am, there's an active restraining order. You need to stay back." Outside the courthouse, she waited on the steps, still crying, still calling my name. I walked past her without stopping. Ava fell into step beside me. "Congratulations," she said softly. "You're legally single." I exhaled a shaky breath that felt like it had been trapped in my chest for months. "Just like that. Just like that," she replied. I got in my car and drove straight to my brother's house. He'd just returned from his honeymoon. When I told him it was officially over, he grinned and handed me a beer. About damn time. That was 3 months ago. Now life is quiet, and I've realized quiet is underrated. I moved into a new apartment. No memories, no ghosts, no one else's fingerprints on the walls. I started running again in the mornings, cooking for myself at night, and working without the weight of constant emotional turbulence. My promotion came through last month. My boss said he respected how I'd handled the personal crisis without turning it into an office drama. Claire tried to contact me once through mutual friends, but they shut it down. The court documents are public, and truth has a funny way of silencing rumors. I heard she's living with her parents now, telling anyone who'll listen that I used her and threw her away. Her friends might believe her. I don't care. Ava and I grab coffee sometimes, just friends. She jokes that I'm her favorite client. I told her that's a terrifying compliment. We laugh about it, but deep down, I know she's right about one thing. Most people waste years trying to fix the unfixable. I wasted 3 weeks. Still too long, but it could have been a lifetime. I think about that shredded passport sometimes, how it started everything, how something meant to confine me ended up setting me free. Here's what I've learned. When someone destroys something you own just to prove they control you, believe them the first time. When love starts to sound like ownership, leave, because love isn't supposed to feel like a cage. And sometimes, freedom costs exactly $400 and one emergency passport.